We are about to break down my latest 2025 NFL mock draft. Before we get there, the order for this mock draft was based on the Chat Sports Consensus NFL Power Ranking. So if you don't like where your team is drafting, it's not my fault. I was outvoted. I will also link the Power Rankings video so you can go complain over there. But make sure you guys are subscribed for those Power Rankings each week so you can air your grievances before the mock draft drops. Let's get into it. Number 1, Travis Hunter. Jacksonville is kind of a weird team where they've got a lot of these early teams, the needs and top players don't necessarily align. I'm just going to take the best one for Jacksonville. I think he can play NFL number 1 corner, NFL number 1 wide receiver. He is a stud. The things he does, like at a certain point, you have to stop going like, oh, he's going to get tired. Why? He does it every game. He's going to wilt in the Florida Heat. He's from Florida. He just built different. Hunter is a superstar, and I would let him play both sides. He'd be my number 3 receiver and my number 3 corner. I think I can make that work in the NFL. Both are actually kind of needs for Jacksonville anyway, at least to an extent, especially corner. Now, we'll talk a lot about quarterbacks on today's show. And there are several other QBs we'll get to. Please don't freak out about where they're ranked necessarily. It is, after all, October. I think Shedeuer Sanders fits what Brian Callahan wants to do on offense, and I continue to be impressed with him. The biggest thing for me for Shedeuer Sanders is not, handling pressure or hitting more over the middle of the throws. He's shown some progress in both there. He's very accurate, though. He's very quick release, too. It's the leadership stuff. It is the intangibles. I don't know if teams are going to like him calling out his old teammates. That might not go over well. But you get him outside of the Coach Prime bubble, and might even be better for him. Number 3 is Will Johnson, and you could easily go quarterback here, too, for Carolina. I think they should just not and build the roster up better and then figure it out. Johnson is a great cornerback prospect. Carolina has a need, especially beyond J.C. Horn. I think that is an obvious area of concern for Carolina, and you can make an argument that Johnson is the best prospect in this class. There's like 7 different guys that you can make that argument for. I like him a lot. Patriots at 4. Let's take an offense tackle to protect Drake May. They got to keep adding offensive picks. So offensive line or even going down the route of receiver makes sense. I got Banks out of Texas at number 4. Quarterback could also be in play here at number 5 for the Miami Dolphins. But to replace Christian Wilkins, let's take Mason Graham out of Michigan. That is a star player. Much like Will Johnson, Travis Hunter, he's got a claim of, actually, I'm the best player in this year's class. I love Mason Graham. I think the Miami, Stephen Ross, Michigan connection adds some minor bonuses. Not that you necessarily need it, but I think it makes sense for the Dolphins. Number 6 is Cam Ward to the New York Football Giants. And I'm just going to say this right now. I am intentionally putting more quarterbacks on this mock draft than I maybe would in other years. Reason being, I actually want to discuss these quarterbacks. And because there is not an obvious number 1 pick lock right now. And it will, as you saw this week, it's going to fluctuate from game to game. He's the number 1 pick. That's the number 1 pick. Last week it was Cam Ward. This week it's Jalen Milroe. I like a lot of what Cam Ward does. I think there's also still some high variance in his play where I don't think he processes as fast as I like him to. That's very true for most quarterbacks. There's some big-time plays. There's out-of-structure stuff. There's also just missing some reads and being a little bit volatile. But we're talking about the Giants with league neighbors. I think he's actually a pretty decent fit if it's Brian Daboll or not. So how many quarterbacks go in round 1 of the 2025 NFL draft? Is it 3? Is it 2? Is it 4? It is the pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Let's get the Browns a wide receiver with Amari Cooper uncertainty long-term. Tetairoa McMillan. He's kind of a weird prospect. He's big, like height, but he plays like a finesse slot receiver. I mean that in a good way, by the way. He's dangerous after the catch. He is a different body type than what the Browns have. He's a damn good receiver prospect. Number 8 is Jalen Milroe. And with all of these quarterback prospects, there's real question marks around them. It's Cam Ward. Like, he's a gunslinger. Can he be consistent for an entire season? Hasn't done it yet. He's had some issues against Virginia Tech. Jalen Milroe holds the ball too long. Some struggles over the middle. He was much better in that area, though, against Georgia. He's got the arm strength. He's got the mobility. There's a lot of intriguing things about Jalen Milroe, and I do think this version of the offense for Alabama is kind of hiding some of the negatives and maximizing the strengths and the benefits. He'd be a fun fit in Vegas, regardless of what their receiving core looks like. Now, this is where I begin to stretch and put quarterbacks a bit higher than what they should go. I'll put Quinn Ewers at number 9 here, but he is still a total question mark because he had a great game early in the year against Michigan. I thought it one of his best games ever. I still want to see more consistency deep downfield and on the outside. I think he could be maximized by Sean McVay. It's a good spot to go to learn behind Matthew Stafford maybe for a year. Both those guys have special arm talent, even if the results for Ewers aren't necessarily there yet. I also wonder how he's going to come back from the injury. And those injuries are a big question mark. Because if you can't stay healthy, I can't play you. So for Ewers, I want to see him play well down the stretch. Because if he doesn't, it's going to be Arch Manning next year in Texas. If he struggles, he might have to go to the portal. And that gets a little bit dicey. Number 10, the edge class has not wowed me yet, but Abdul Carter out of Penn State coming off a good game this past week, by the way. He's kind of a 3-4 outside linebacker or linebacker edge hybrid. He fits what the Eagles wanted or what the Cardinals want to do with former Eagles head coach on the Gannon on defense. I like that fit quite a bit. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite teams play live even easier. Don't have to fluff. To only show you the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time straight through so many tickets. It's curation designed to save you even more money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. The all-in pricing feature shows your total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And the Game Time guarantee is this. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account and redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today because what time is it? It's game time. I am a big fan of Luther Burden out of Missouri. That is a game-breaking threat at wide receiver. Not the biggest guy necessarily. I think also covers up some not great quarterback play for the Tigers as well. Getting Bo Nix more playmakers. That makes sense. Malachi Starks, the Colts, the Georgia safety, very talented player. I think is kind of, it's a safety. It's not as highly valued. You can still find a good mock draft spot. Indy needs an impact secondary player. Got him one there at number 12. Some players slide because the quarterbacks went early, by the way. Will Campbell, number 13, out of LSU to the Bears. Protect Caleb Williams. Probably change your scheme, too, a little bit from a blocking perspective. But Will Campbell is a very good offensive rusher. He was a toss-up between going number 4 and ended up falling down here. Didn't have a great feel for the Bengals at 14, but Sam Hubbard has not been very good. Miles Murphy's been banged up. Trey Hendrickson is getting up there in age and also is going to be looking for a new contract again this offseason. Adding a premium pass rusher probably makes some sense, and Pierce as a situational guy who's not a great run stopper, I think actually would bring a different element than what the Bengals have right now. A little quiet to start the year, but he is a very gifted prospect. Fun idea, maybe, depending on how you feel about him. The Jets, Carson Beck. He kind of salvaged some stuff in that second half by performance. He was bad in the first half. He was shook. And they showcased some of the things that made you worried about him, where he's not the same physically gifted quarterback, and if he's a little bit late on some of his reads, I think you're looking at more of a Jared Goff ceiling. So I was never sold on Carson Beck at quarterback 1. He was almost a placeholder to see how some other guys fared. I think he's definitely slid down to a certain extent. But none of these quarterbacks for me are really like obvious top 10 guys, top 5 guys. But there's also half a season plus to go. There's plenty of time for guys to answer some questions and look better and continue their upward stocks or not. So right now, who is your quarterback 1? And I don't mean it's not a bad thing to get a Jared Goff clone and Carson back. That actually would be a good outcome. But if that's the ceiling, knowing what the floor is, that gets a little bit more dicey. So who is your quarterback one right now? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Chargers get a Michigan man. That is Kenneth Grant, the freaky athlete out of Michigan. Fills a need, good value, checks off boxes there. Cowboys get another defensive lineman. And Deion Walker is a very unique prospect. He's a little bit light in the lower body. He's still 6'6", 350, and drops into coverage and makes plays. Very unique prospect, and I think actually does have some question marks around him as a result. But I think adding a defensive tackle who might be more of just a giant 3 technique than he is a true nose guard actually does fit for Dallas. Benjamin Morrison. This was a great value pick for Green Bay. He's a top 15 guy for me, but he just fell because other guys went earlier. Fills a need. Great player. He's awesome. Saints, you know what? If you lose Chase Young to free agency with the way Peyton Turner, Isaiah Foskey have played, and Cam Jordan's getting older, edge is a sneaky need. And Nick Scorton has been a little bit quieter than I'd hoped for at Texas A&M this year. Not bad, don't get me wrong there. But none of these edges have taken over that number 1 edge spot. Somebody will down the stretch. But I do like Scorton. Eagles fans might not love it because it's another Georgia edge. But Mikael Williams is a good player. Now, he's been a bit banged up. It's limited him as a result. I think second half breakout is coming for the talented pass rusher. And Eagles love going premium positions in round 1. Falcons, Jack Sawyer. He's been pretty good for Ohio State. Now, the level of competition is a valid red flag. We'll know more about him as the season goes on. But I think to replace to replace Matthew Judon, a pass rusher is an area of concern. I wanted a defensive player, but I was getting a little bit heavy. I didn't want to go 4 straight edges. Kind of didn't want it was going to be a weird mock otherwise. Isaiah Bond is a speedy wide receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin because the Jahan Dotson pick has not worked out. And I'm not sold on Diami Brown. They're playing Noah Brown big snaps, and that's not, I think, a great idea long term. Speedy vertical threat for Bond to catch go balls from Jaden Daniels. I think that's a good idea. Number 23, the Steelers, Ashton Jeanty. And I think he's going to go round 1. Najee Harris is a free agent. Jalen Warren is probably more of a rotational back. If you haven't watched Jeanty play, I don't normally advise just go watch the highlights. Just go watch the highlights. That is his film. That's all he does. He's been incredible. And I think he's going to go in the first round pretty clearly. So will a running back go in round 1 this year? Y for yes, N for no. I think he goes in round 1, maybe multiple go in round 1. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Jalen Walker out of Georgia, who's kind of this part linebacker, part edge rusher. I think I almost put him here just because of the defensive coordinator. I think Mike McDaniel could do a lot of fun stuff with him. He drops into coverage, he blitzes, he does run defense, he does a little bit of everything. So I think Mike McDaniel, edge has been pretty good, linebacker not so much. I think he could have a lot of fun deploying him in Seattle. The Bucs at 25 get a cornerback. It's Denzel Burke to fill some question marks on that side of the ball. The Niners finally invest in the offensive line. They take Emory Jones out of LSU. Could go earlier. Might be a guard too, but you have options there. I still think getting some more offense lineup for the Ravens is an area of concern. Tyler Booker is one of the most powerful people alive, and I mean people. The strength that man possesses is unbelievable, and the Ravens love their SEC players anyway. Houston at 28, Tyler Williams out of Ohio State. I would love to get a truly dynamic, impactful 3 technique who's also got some pretty good size on him too. With what the Texans do on defense, I think that dynamic presence in the middle is all they're lacking, really. I want to see that fit in Houston. A name you might not have seen much of, Antoine Powell-Ryland. Now, he's got 7 sacks this year out of Virginia Tech. Now, were 4 of them against Old Dominion? Yes, but he also played really well against Miami. I'm kind of shooting my shot a little bit early here on Antoine Powell-Ryland. But I think another edge for the Lions to pair with Aiden Hutchinson because Houston's kind of a rotational piece. Davenport's on a 1-year deal. I think that could certainly be a fit for them. The Bills at 30. I just love Alec Eomanor. He's so good. He's buried on a bad Stanford team that no one's really watching, or at least a not great Stanford team that no one's watching. He makes plays, man. He and Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, that's fun. That's a fun group. Minnesota at 31, Takario Davis. Cornerback is still an area of concern. Gilmore and Murphy are on 1-year deals. I think adding more talent is just a logical fit for Brian Flores' defense. And I wanted to have some fun. Colston Loveland at 32, who might not still be tight end 1. He's kind of, the quarterback play has been bad and kind of hurting him a little bit there up in Michigan. But I think for a team that loves to utilize tight ends, I know that they spent a draft pick this past year, a 4th round pick on Jared Wiley. Kelsey can't play forever. Colston fits, I think, what the Chiefs would like to do on that side of the ball. Now, I left players out. I am not going to go 100%. There's no way. Who did I leave out of my 2025 NFL mock draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. A couple names I might expect to see on here. Harold Perkins, he and Siobhan Ravel have been in previous mock drafts. They have injuries now. They tore stuff. It's a huge red flag. It puts them in the unknown category for me for the time being. I like Emeka Ibuka. I think he's more of a number 2 than anything else. Ariante Ursary, the tackle from Minnesota. Tackles tend to rise. Can easily go round 1. And I like Jonah Savanaia out of Arizona. Might be a guard, but he's a good player.